Well, I met him and he told me that I'm #1 in the world in Facebook. He sat down, he said, "Congratulations, you're #1." And I said, "That's very nice. It's always nice to be #1. You know who #2 is? Modi of India.
Yeah.
But he has 1.5 billion people. I have 350. Let me explain how the world works, okay? I think nobody knows more about taxes than I do.
Nobody knows more about construction than I do.
Nobody knows more about campaign finance than I do.
Nobody knows consultants better than me.
I know more about drones than anybody.
And I think I know more about the environment than most people.
I know a lot about wind.
I know more about ISIS than the generals do, believe me. Nobody in the history of this country has ever known so much about infrastructure as Donald Trump.
I know a lot about wind.
I understand the power of Facebook maybe better than almost anybody.
I know more about courts than any human being on earth.
Nobody knows more about banks than I do.
Nobody knows more about trade than me. I understand politicians better than anybody. Nobody knows politicians better than me.
I think I know more about the other side than almost anybody. Who knows the other side better than me?
I understand things. I comprehend very well. Okay? Better than, I think, almost anybody.
The truth is I'm actually a modest person, very modest. In fact, many people tell me that modesty is perhaps my best quality.
Family has had plenty scandals in their time, but right now they're going through an unprecedented crisis. The Queen summoned everyone to a private meeting for an emergency royal summit.
This was a crisis summit. At the end of that, they released that statement where she says the royal family is extremely supportive of Harry and Meghan's desire to create a new life. First of all, statements that come out of not the palace, but the Queen herself are rare. Something that actually suggests feeling is even more rare.
But that's where we are right now. Why would Harry and Meghan want out of a life that so many people dream of having?
For me and for my wife, you know, of course there's a lot of stuff that hurts, especially when the majority of it is untrue. I will not be bullied into playing a game that killed my mum.
It's hard. It's not enough to just survive something, right? Like, that's not the point of life. You've got to thrive, you've got to feel happy, and I think I really tried to adopt this British sensibility of a stiff upper lip. But I think that what that does internally is probably really damaging.
The reality of being a royal couple has been far from a fairy tale. Meghan and Harry are on their way to a new life. But now, everyone is wondering what they'll do to support themselves without any of that royal cash.
Prince Harry caught on camera touting his wife's voice acting skills to Disney CEO Bob Iger. It happened last summer in London. Meghan was just steps away while the prince made his pitch.
Well, good news, Meghan's already got herself a job.
Respecto a su trabajo, además del contrato con Disney, Meghan podría estar cerrando su colaboración con la casa de moda Givenchy. Sus planes van como esperaban. En esta jugada de ajedrez, los duques han avanzado varias casillas, pero es importante recordar que la reina se puede mover libremente por todo el tablero.
Willkommen in Livermore, Kalifornien, der Heimat der ältesten Glühbirne der Welt.
109 Jahre alt und sie brennt noch immer. Eine Webcam schickt rund um die Uhr Bilder von der Livermore-Glühbirne ins Internet. Ironischerweise hat sie bereits 2 Webcams überlebt.
Den Glühfaden hat Adolphe Chaillet erfunden. Er war langlebig.
Chaillets Formel für den langlebigen Glühfaden ist nicht das einzige Mysterium in der Geschichte der Glühbirne. Noch geheimnisumwobener ist, wie sie zum ersten Opfer der geplanten Obsoleszenz wurde.
Weihnachten 1924 war ein ganz besonderer Tag. In einem Hinterzimmer in Genf trafen sich einige Herren in Nadelstreifenanzügen, um einem geheimen Plan nachzugehen. Sie gründeten das erste weltweite Kartell, das sich zum Ziel setzte, die Glühbirnenproduktion der gesamten Länder zu kontrollieren und den Kuchen namens Weltmarkt unter sich aufzuteilen. Dieses Kartell hat den Namen Phöbus. Das Ziel ist gewesen, Patente auszutauschen, die Produktion zu kontrollieren und vor allem aber den Verbraucher zu kontrollieren. Es ist umso besser für diese Firmen, wenn der Verbraucher regelmäßig Glühlampen kauft, und wenn die Glühlampen lange brennen, ist das ein ökonomischer Nachteil. Also hat man sich bei Phöbus gedacht, beschränken wir einfach die Lebensdauer dieser einzelnen Glühbirnen auf 1000 Stunden.
Mit der geplanten Obsoleszenz sank die Lebensdauer der Glühbirnen. In nur 2 Jahren von 2500 auf weniger als 1500 Stunden. In den 1940ern hatte das Kartell sein Ziel erreicht. Die Standardlebensdauer einer Glühbirne betrug nun 1000 Stunden. In den folgenden Jahrzehnten meldeten Dutzende von Erfindern Patente für neue Glühbirnen an, darunter eine, die 100.000 Stunden brannte. Keine davon kam je auf den Markt. Dank der Massenproduktion fielen die Preise und viele Waren wurden für jedermann erschwinglich. Doch die Hersteller fragten sich, ob der Kaufrausch anhalten würde. Was wäre, wenn der Verbraucher seine Bedürfnisse befriedigt sähe? Schon 1928 warnte ein einflussreiches Werbemagazin: Ein Artikel, der nicht verschleißt, ist eine Tragödie fürs Geschäft. 1929, nach dem Börsenkrach an der Wall Street, war es mit der Konsumgesellschaft dann erst einmal vorbei. Die USA stürzten in eine tiefe Rezession. Bernard London, ein bekannter Immobilienmakler, wollte, um die Depression zu beenden, die geplante Obsoleszenz zur Pflicht machen. Londons Vorschlag sah vor, alle Produkte mit einem Verfallsdatum zu versehen, nach dessen Ablauf sie amtlich als tot galten. Verbraucher sollten sie dann bei einer Behörde abliefern, wo sie zerstört würden. Einen Artikel über das Verfallsdatum hinaus zu behalten, sollte strafbar sein. Bernard London glaubte, dass durch geplante Obsoleszenz die Industrie wieder in Schwung kommen würde. Die Menschen würden wieder konsumieren und bald jeder eine Arbeit haben.
Bei den Ingenieuren gab es einen Paradigmenwechsel. Die alte Schule sah es noch als ihre Aufgabe an, ein Produkt herzustellen, das nie kaputt ging. Die neue Schule war vom Markt gesteuert und an möglichst vergänglichen Produkten interessiert. Die Debatte war vorbei, als das neue Ingenieursdenken die Oberhand gewann.
Unsere Wachstumsgesellschaft ist wie ein Rennwagen, der mit voller Geschwindigkeit dahin rast, aber keinen Fahrer mehr hat. Das Ende ist vorhersehbar. Entweder fährt sie gegen eine Wand oder stürzt in einen Abgrund.
Ahora tenemos diferentes clases de obsolescencia. La obsolescencia por defecto, incompatibilidad, psicológica y ecológica. Por defecto se refiere cuando un componente electrónico del dispositivo deja de funcionar. En estos casos, repararlo sale más caro que comprarse uno nuevo. La incompatibilidad se puede dar a nivel software o hardware. Cuando se trata de software es porque cada actualización empeora el rendimiento del dispositivo. Mientras tanto, la incompatibilidad a nivel de hardware se da cuando cambias un componente dañado por otro que es idéntico, pero por ser de diferente serie, tu dispositivo ya no quiere prender o sale un error que no te permite utilizarlo. Por otra parte, tenemos la obsolescencia psicológica. Este es el método que utilizan las empresas en sus campañas de publicidad, donde hacen todo lo posible para que tú percibas un producto como viejo o pasado de moda. Apple y Samsung abusan de esto, donde cada año presentan los mismos celulares, pero con mejoras muy leves. Por último les presento la obsolescencia ecológica, la cual promueve que utilices dispositivos con componentes menos agresivos al ambiente. Sin embargo, estos dispositivos ecológicos tienen menos vida y a la larga dañan más el ambiente porque no se pueden reciclar de forma sencilla. No les pido que dejen de consumir, pero sí traten de regular y exigir un mejor producto.
Silicon Valley has been driving the U.S. economy for years now. But there is growing scrutiny on the questionable business practices of Apple and other star companies here, and a growing movement to make them more accountable to consumers.
Apple's perspective is that they want complete control over the device from the moment that you buy it all the way through the end of life. So this is the pentalobe screw. It's on the bottom of the MacBook Pro. It's not like any screw that you've seen before. And it turns out that Apple invented their own screw. It's purely they want to make the devices harder for normal people to open with the tools that they already have laying around.
Overall, Apple tries to get you to purchase a new device instead of repair your old one.
So this is a MacBook Pro that the Apple Store said would cost $1,200 to fix and wasn't worth doing.
All right, let's take a look and see if that's true. See the pin that's sticking out?
Okay.
I got my set of tweezers over here, and I'm just going to try to push that back into the slot. As you can see, we've got an apple, and we have a light.
How often do people show up here with the Apple Store telling them it can't be fixed or it's too expensive to fix?
Somewhere between 10 and 30 times a day.
Many Apple customers are starting to wonder whether the company really has their best interest at heart.
After an incident last winter, Apple faced a fresh allegation. Customers accused the company of a sneaky policy that pressured them to buy new smartphones.
The performance of many phones was cut down after the latest operating system upgrade from Apple. It looked like a case of planned obsolescence, an effort to pressure consumers into buying new products when they didn't have to.
Thick, toxic, unbreathable. Around the wastelands of the Agbogbloshie scrapyards, the smoke never clears. Copper, aluminium, it's all there for the taking.
Yeah, it's burning place. We are burning waste and aluminium.
Awal's been stripping waste for 6 years, selling by weight the metal he recovers. He makes 15 cedis a day, less than €3, while facing constant hazard. It's difficult to put a figure on how many work here, but several thousand at least. According to a US study, Agbogbloshie is among the top 10 most polluted sites on the planet. Cadmium, lead, mercury and arsenic are permanently present in the soil, sometimes at levels 100 times greater than international safety standards. Cars, computers, mobile phones, televisions, all manner of electronic devices that end up here are painstakingly sorted, stripped and dismantled. You can find anything in the rubbish here, but it's the electronic waste that's the most sought after for the metals it contains. Most of it comes from outside Ghana. The European Union has strictly prohibited the export of e-waste. Yet around 350,000 tons, the equivalent of 2.5 billion smartphones, leave Europe illegally every year. In the meantime, the waste burners will go on burning, despite the risks to their health. Despite the risks for the environment. It's their livelihood.
Para cambiar el sistema completamente, tenemos que cambiar el modelo industrial y el modelo económico. No podemos basarlo en el crecimiento permanente, sino en la sostenibilidad permanente. Y se puede hacer. Si se crearan esos productos con durabilidad y que fuesen reparables, que fuese más rentable repararlos que comprar uno nuevo, se crearía más trabajo. Y más trabajo local, evidentemente. No nos tendríamos que endeudar para comprar 5 y 6 lavadoras, 5 o 6 televisores durante toda nuestra vida, ¿no? Y en último extremo, por supuesto, no se consumirían materias primas de forma innecesaria, el planeta Tierra no colapsaría.
3 diferentes cámaras de monitoreo volcánico se registró cómo un objeto cruza sobre el coloso de fuego y se aleja rápidamente. Una especie de cilindro, y cuando está sobre el cráter del volcán parece emitir una especie de destello.
We were seeded here from various star nations. In this premise, genetic and ethnic diversity is explained. It also covers the differences in our blood types. Perhaps some star nations have people with predominantly red hair and freckles, while others have dark-skinned inhabitants. Maybe some, such as the Pleiadians, have blonde hair and blue eyes. Perhaps we would look at ourselves differently if we saw a planet inhabited by various star nations, versus segregating ourselves from one another through patriotism, nationality, and prejudice.
Any Indian tribe and other Aboriginal groups have a direct connection with what we term the star people. They talk about the origin of their ancestry from different constellations, different star systems. For example, if you look at the Cherokee tribe, their logo of their flag it's got seven pointed star, and they claim that their ancestry was created by the Pleiadian people.
It's really our minds that are locked into the 3D and into like a materialistic view of reality. We are 3D going into 4D. We're a soul having a material experience in essence. And so we are able to go interdimensional. That's part of this package that we call humanity, the human vehicle that we operate and we exist within. Humans always tend to think that we're the only game out there. There is no alone in this universe or multiverse, actually. You'll see a true history of humanity in the visitation and the engineering, re-engineering, and bringing in different types of beings' DNA into our genome.
Earth has been inhabited and has been used as a way station, a port of harbor for space-traveling extraterrestrial star nations for millions of years. And many of us have direct spiritual reincarnational history with many of these star nations. Humanity is made up of at least 22 different extraterrestrial races, a genetic lineage to other star nations. So I think it's going to be the extraterrestrials who at some point sit down humanity and say, look, here's the whole story of who you are and how we got here and why we're here. And we're never going to get that from Earth religions. That can only come from beings off-world who have not only been through the process, but who have been watching us for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. The benevolents were very compassionate toward humanity, and they did things to help, teaching us agriculture, animal husbandry, construction, astronomy, mathematics, the healing arts, how to use the plants to heal certain diseases and things of that nature. Some actually taught us some spirituality, energy fields, chakras, etc., etc. The last thing the benevolents want is to be worshipped. That is not what they're about. You know, what they want is humanity to step forward and become a part of the family of the galactic. There is an interconnectedness that's being created by these beings on a, what we would call a spiritual level, harmonic level, that our universe, our holograph, which contains all of the universe that we know, has never had before. The immediate result that we're seeing here in third density is the awakening of humanity, the awakening of our DNA, the transformation of how we see ourselves and our connectedness to all that is. There are many kids and many human beings that have had near-death experiences. When they come back into their bodies, many of them have a third strand of DNA. Some have 4. There's a gentleman in New Zealand who was dead almost 3 hours. When he came back, he had 6 strands of DNA. Humanity is beginning to remember that we are, in fact, multidimensional souls that got trapped in a physical dimension by being tricked and manipulated. And we're going to realize that the manipulation of race, color, and creed has been just that. We just need to step into the process and embrace it. And then the reality is that 95% of us is always multidimensional. What we see here in the physical is a very, very small piece of who we really are. 2 years ago, Jupiter picked up an additional 19 moons. Now we're being told that Saturn has picked up some additional moons. Most of these moons have a very specific mineral, and on our periodic chart, the only thing we would recognize would be quartz. Now, these asteroids have been brought into a orbit around these planets. It was a very orderly migration into the solar system. It was all managed. And some of the moons have already shown signs of being mined, and that was by other star nations that have already used this technology. What this mineral does is that you can create bows of boats, rods that will fit into lakes, oceans, housing on aircraft engines, and when you generate a specific harmonic frequency in this metal, it causes all of the protons and electrons of pollution to break down and decay and die, specifically radiation. It causes it to speed up its decay process, and it just falls to the bottom of the ocean. They brought this material here to help us clean up our world. Whenever this process truly begins, they're going to want us to take responsibility for not only the mining, but also the manufacturing and the cleaning of our environment to get everyone involved in this process. And it will help us to re-engage with our home planet, because most of us have detached from nature almost completely.